I'm Allison. Thank you for joining me with thank you for joining me for Where I'm From 173 with Allison K. Williams, different one than me. What have you been reading? I haven't shared in a while. I've read many books. What I'm currently reading is Damen Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver, which is a huge book that left for Allison to join me. I accepted your invite. I'm sending you an invite. Instagram Live is buggy. Ah, hey, it worked quickly. Hurrah. There you are.
Hi. So you're
Hi.
not going to believe this, but this is my very first Instagram live.
I am shocked.
Yeah. I've done a lot of Instagram, but I haven't done any Instagram live. Oh, hey, hi, Janet.
I, a lot of people, this is their first Instagram Live.
Yeah,
But for some reason, I
yeah.
feel like you're everywhere. So I figured you would have done something like this before.
I know, right? Like it seems like I should, and yet.
The benefits of it, or the reason I'm glad that I chose this way back when I started doing this, is because I don't have to edit anything. Like it just is what it is, and then it is done. And that is all.
I am looking at starting a podcast from my Substack, and it is
Yeah,
going to be like 10-minute episodes that are not edited at all. And I'm
because
going
it's
to
a
tape
lot.
them like walking around my house.
Hmm.
So, because I mean, I think that's it. We're done with social media in the sense that we are done curating and clipping
Yeah.
and filtering and picking and poking, and we just want to be there and make it easy. And it's so much better to make it easy than it is to make it perfect.
Agree. I mean, that is such a huge thing. And perfect gets in the way of so much. And that is one of the many blessings of growing older. I didn't care that much for a while, but now I really don't care. It's like, how much time have you got in the world? You
Yep.
know, I don't want to spend it. Kara loves your idea. Hi, Kara.
Hi, Kara.
I love that idea too. I think it's like, yeah. I'm just so grateful I picked this and didn't pick something else when this idea came to me.
Yeah. I
And
am too.
I'm so grateful. I said it a little in my caption, but the community that you and Ashley created was a big part of why I even felt that people would come and join me. You know, because I initially,
Thank
when
you.
I started this, put it out to the comment pod that I was in and just said,
Uh-huh.
"Hey, I have this idea. Would anybody want to join me?" And those were the first people
Yeah.
who joined me
Yeah.
were. So I mean, I don't know if I would have had the thought, oh, there are people out there who want to share their words, um, if you hadn't created that space to begin with. So
Thank
thank you.
you. Thank
Yeah.
you very much. And I love it too because I mean, on one hand, I feel like that we still have comment pods going. At
Yes.
their peak, we had almost 250 people in comment pods. Now we're down to about 60
Mm-hmm.
people. Just as people change their focus to do other
Mm-hmm.
things. But I love this idea that I have to talk to you people. Allison made me. Because those of us who are shy, those of us who are not extroverted, it's
Mm-hmm.
really nice to have that excuse that, somebody else said, well, you have to do it. And it's a little bit easier when you've got somebody else said you have to.
Yeah, and it made it feel like a smaller place, which I think was
Yeah.
so important for me because when you first get on Instagram, at least back then, I was like, I don't know. You know, it just felt, and I have made some really important friendships
Yeah.
from those, and they weren't necessarily even in my pod, but we kind of interacted and overlapped, and it just made the whole. Anyway, I just want to thank you for the community
You
that
are
you've
so
created.
welcome.
Yeah.
You are so welcome. I really, it's really been a joy. It's really been one of the things I feel happiest to have created out there. And I mean, it kind of happened spontaneously. Like Ashley and I were moaning about COVID, and we're like, well, we should do a thing. A thing would be fun, and we just kind of announced on Facebook, hey, let's all talk about platform and publishing on Zoom. And then 150 people turned up, and we're like, oh, maybe we should do this again next week. And then it went every other week for 2 years. And,
Mm-hmm.
now we're doing once a month, and we're doing a lot more with guests, which I
Mm-hmm.
really love. And it's broadened out as well. It's not just social media, it's platform, it's publishing, it's how are we getting our work into the world?
Yep. It's
Yeah.
just nice to not
Yeah.
feel alone because writing is so solitary.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of
I
us
agree.
uh, wrestle with feeling not up to the task or as an imposter. And you see, like, oh, okay, everyone feels like
Yeah.
this. It's just always
Yes.
so, it's always so important to realize you're not alone in whatever it is you're grappling with.
100%. 100%. Yeah. And I love this series that you've started.
I know I sometimes can't believe it's 173 and it's, booked for months. And I think I've said this before. I created a space that I wanted for myself, just a space where people get to share what's on their mind. And there's no editing. It's just show up and share with me. And I don't know, it's really meaningful. And I've become friends with Georgella out of it, which is not
Excellent.
something I would have imagined either when I started it, but she's wonderful and very supportive, and she really enjoys this series. And I think that's sweet for people to think that Georgella is reading their poems or listening to their poems, which she is.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. That's awesome. I love it. And I found her poem really inspirational too.
I
It was really beautiful to
know.
read it. And I just love this idea of form. I mean, I think too that as writers, I've taught classes about how copying our models, it can be a really great way to explore new sentence structures, new formats, new forms, new way of describing things. I call it copy to learn.
Mm-hmm.
And I teach a whole series of
Mm-hmm.
exercises with some of my favorite passages from different books, and people copy them, putting in their own words in that framework. And, it's kind of like that Mad Libs game that we used to
It
play as
definitely is.
kids. And I love it. I absolutely love it. It's such a cool way to try on another voice.
Yeah, and for me, it's changed my writing because you can tell people as much as people can tell you many, many times concrete sensory details, but you're like,
Yeah.
okay, whatever, sure. But then when you listen to poem after poem and you are touched by these people, everyone's
Yeah.
details, and you feel them personally, you realize, oh, the more specific it is, actually, the more universal it is. It's true. It's not just something people say. It's real.
Many years ago, I was touring a one woman show. It's called True Story. It's a series of monologues that I wrote from interviews with people about what's the most important
Oh,
thing you're
cool.
carrying with you.
Mm-hmm.
And I also told some of my own stories in there as well. And there was one story in there that I was like, this is going to be so weird. Nobody's even going to believe this happened.
Mm-hmm.
And every single show, I kid you not, a woman came up to me or a girl came up to me after the show and she said, oh my goodness, that was my story. That happened to me. You told that thing that happened to me. And that's what you have to do. You have to dive down and get really, really specific.
That must have been very, very meaningful for you to
It
hear
really
that.
was. It
Mm-hmm.
really was. Yeah. I loved doing that show. I grew out of it, weirdly enough. I toured it for 2.5 years on the Fringe
Wow.
Festival circuit, and it did really well and it won a lot of
Mm-hmm.
prizes. And then I went back and did it at another Fringe Festival 10 years later and was like, oh, I have outgrown the stage of my life where I'm really good at doing this show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it happens, right? You think, I'm going to do this forever, and then you just
Yeah.
don't.
And then off it goes.
And that is one of I love your poem. I love them all. I moved my legs.
Thank
Sorry,
you.
I moved everything. But I loved, and I can say it after you read it, but how I don't know you that well, but I felt like, oh, this is all the things that I like, all the things that I
Thanks.
know are here. And there's something
Yeah.
like, and I think people who hear it, who know you, will have a similar experience. And there's something gratifying about, like, oh, but more. Like the
Thank you.
things that I know, but
Yeah.
more. Um,
Cool.
so anyway,
Oh,
that's my
okay.
introduction. If you're ready for
Awesome.
me to.
I'll read a poem. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. I am from used cars, from pawn shops and bookies. I am from the White House with the nicotine corner. When he moved out, she painted the brown wall white. I am from winter palm trees and summer maples. Every year, a few days late to school started without me, no matter how many plastic charms I clipped on to keep up. I am from, don't worry, I checked her label and it's not real. I'm from circus birthdays, every year beginning with Wallendas and Gebel-Williams, but from college instead of a chorus of dancing girls. I'm from the renfair, from Jim Greene and Johnny Fox, and counting out our worth from silly hats. I'm from 500 shows to get funny, and 500 more to get kind. From Damen und Herren, noch eine, sacher, and dami, gospoda, ušte, nešto, phonetically on the sweaty paper in my hot pink top, and counting out our worth in dinar and kuna and tunies, from crossing the river to do the show again for the other side. In my closet is still a duffel, the show bags always packed alike, carabiners tested, tortures wrapped, and me ready to go on, waiting for you. Thanks.
Oh, I loved it. So what was the experience like for you? I mean, you already talked about it a little bit. You managed to wedge this in between your many, many commitments, Allison. Thank you.
You're so welcome, because I have to tell you, 3 months ago when we first set this date, it was a really long time away. And I made some little notes here and there. And I thought, oh, yes, at some point I will write a poem for Allison. And then this afternoon I was like, I really need to write a poem for Allison. And about 2 hours ago, I wrote a poem for Allison. And it was just really nice to feel like, oh, yeah, this is still in me. I still have this ability to write a poem. I haven't written a poem in a really long time. And it was fun to do. And I think too, having something specific to follow made it much less painful. But I've actually been thinking about the past in the last couple of days. I dug up an old blog that I kept to pull a quote off it, and I was surprised at how much the self that was me writing then just hit me like a truck. And I've been like, sort of weepy and everything on the edge for the last couple of days. So it was really nice to sit down and reconsider the past.
Yeah. And how it informs us now. I mean, that's the thing.
Yeah.
I'm always, because I don't know if you were like this, but I certainly was like, oh, I just need to get over it. I need to let it go. I need to move on. Like, I'm a new person. I'm creating my life. Why is this stuff still knocking at the door?
Yeah.
But it does.
Yeah.
And for me, it's been liberating, like just accepting that it does and not feeling like a failure for not moving on.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing too. One of my authors in my project memoir class said a great thing. She's like, you're not getting over it. You're getting on with it.
Yeah.
And I really love that. I love that idea that, of course, once we're happy with where we are, we need to be reasonably okay with what got us here, even though a big chunk of what got us here was negative or obstacles or stuff we pushed against. But we got to a destination that we're really happy with, and we wouldn't be in this place if it were not for all those things.
Yeah, and I also feel a lot of gratitude for all those little versions of me that kept going, like, and to just acknowledge, like, wow, you kept going. Good job. You didn't know where, but you did it.
I went through a phase in my life where I looked back at my past self and went, oh, what were you thinking? How could you? That was so rude. That was so thoughtless. How could you do that to that person? And then I went through another phase that I think I'm at the tail end of now, which is I did the best I could with what I had at the time.
That's right.
Yeah. And forgiving my younger self for doing a bunch of dumb, hurtful stuff that I didn't know any better at the time, And
yeah, you are doing the best with what you have, and you're evolving and improving. And I was here at the beginning thanking you, and there are many, many people who are grateful for you and what you've done. So I think I don't know if you have a therapist. I do, and I will connect with these younger parts of myself, and every single one of them is like, we made it. You're still alive. We're still like doing, and I think just connecting with that, realizing that that was very real for me. And I'm guessing for you too, like the future just felt like, I don't know, like, I don't know how I'm going to get there. So Give
I
yourself like, you
would
did
not
it.
have been, yeah.
You're here.
I would not have been surprised at what I've ended up doing. I would have been surprised at how successful I've
Mhm.
managed to make it.
Mhm.
And I feel, there's an obligation in that. There's an obligation to keep showing other people that it can be done, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah.
think it's nice when I like people who feel like there's not only there's not only a need but a desire to give back and to create and to give what you've been given.
Yeah. Yeah. I tell people sometimes that when I was 9 years old, my dad said to me, "How come you're so goddamn selfish?" And
Yeah.
it was like, now I'm looking back and it's like, I was 9. All 9-year-olds are insanely selfish,
That's
but I have
actually
spent the
developmentally
rest,
appropriate of you.
exactly.
Mhm.
I have spent the rest of my life living that down. So,
Same. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I am a nice person. Gosh darn it. Like, man, I spent a
Yeah.
lot of time because of those same
And
sorts of
I
comments.
ha I have to say too that like I live in the Middle East. I'm moving to Portugal in April, but I've lived in the Middle East for 12 or 13 years now, and it's a really good place to be able to use your white lady powers for good. There are like situations I can diffuse.
Mm.
There are people I can stick up for. This was not in the Middle East, this was India, but I'm always reminded of the time that my rickshaw driver dropped me off in India, and the police were not happy with where he was dropping me off and came
Mm-hmm.
after him to hit him with a stick.
Mm.
And I stepped in between the stick and the dude, and I said, and I kid you not, I said, "You can't hit me. I'm a tourist."
Yeah. Good for you.
And I think that's it. I think, those of us who have discovered that we can survive the sticks, sometimes we got to step in front of somebody else's stick and help them out a little bit.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I love the circus. And so that's why there's circus in there. And
I
I've spent a
know.
really long time working on the renfair circuit. And I learned how to say, "Ladies and gentlemen, one more thing," and the funny
Yeah.
part, "and now please give us money," in about 18 languages. And I really love that that's still part of me, that all of those are things that taught me to be who I am now.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that is the power of self-reflection, and this prompt and this poem is hopefully reminding people or helping remind them that whatever got them here, they're here, and it's wonderful. So, yeah.
100%. Thank you for creating this beautiful experience that so many people are getting to experience. And thank you for asking me to be part of it. I absolutely love knowing you and being your friend and your colleague.
Thank you, Allison. I feel the exact same way. So I really appreciate you taking the time and being here and sharing your words with me. And I look forward to seeing you again soon. I'm sure we
You
will cross
too.
paths shortly.
Yay.
Okay. Bye.
I don't